Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cast. Guys, today I have for you one of the games from my backlog. I actually have a pretty huge backlog of games to cast. Some of these are from the 996 version. There's been so many good games that the community has actually brought me, has sent me, has begged me to cast that I've just struggled to do all of them. Remember, I am the only Escalation caster right now, so I'm trying to do it all. I'm like Atlas carrying the world on my shoulders, and I'm also Neo from the Matrix, dodging bullets left and right, dodging all the insults that my viewers send at me because of my terrible casting skills. But guys, I did beg the community, please more water maps. Everyone knows I have an affinity for the epic T3 naval action, and so I started complaining very loudly and inappropriately probably to anyone and everyone that would listen. Please play more water maps, and I think AWA heard me. The people have spoken. They have chosen to play on this map, which is called Corrupted Waters. It's actually a water version of the map Corrupted, which was typically a land-only map. So I have cast Corrupted before and played on it many times, but I've never casted this map. This map was actually made by Race, so shout out to Race. Shout out to our resident macro god player. This is going to be pretty much a water-exclusive map. There's a couple pieces of land. I doubt they'll make much of a difference in the game. This is usually when we see water, we see hybrid maps, so it's like half land, half water, or something like that. Reasonably half and half, or maybe 33% water. But water plays a factor. But rarely do I cast games that are completely on water like this. So this is going to be a treat. I love Escalation naval combat. I think it's so well designed. I think the units that are added in Escalation to the naval combat actually enrich the experience. They make the combat more dynamic and interesting, especially in T1, the frigates and the Corsairs, which are like a anti-air and anti-ship. They add, I think it's also more realistic because if you consider naval warfare in real life, at least like a World War II style naval warfare, you did have the scout ships like the Skeeters and the Searchers, but you also had frigates, you had cruisers, you had, like I said, like Corsairs, anti-air ships, destroyers, and all of that. So I love that Escalation just adds so many more options for the player, especially once they get to T3. I'm going to send out a small prayer to the TA gods here at the beginning of this cast. Please let this game get to T3. Let us see the epic action unfolding. But speaking of the action, Blue and Brown have both gone seaplane first, so that's interesting. Man, I don't know when the last time I even saw a seaplane platform was. So that is awesome. It's nice to see seaplanes. Another thing that I really like about Escalation, the change, is that they removed the missile from the Searcher. So in OTA, the Searcher just has way too much functionality. It's both pretty amazing in naval combat for its cost, but it also has anti-air. It just kind of does everything. That was a big issue with OTA in general, was there was too many units that just kind of were good at everything. I'm thinking of Samsons, which were anti-air but amazing against ground, or Hawks that just kill everything. And so I like that in Escalation units have more defined roles. Scouts are still useful, but they don't own air like they did in OTA. So air, I think, will play a much bigger role, hopefully, in this match than we might expect on a full sea map in OTA. So that is very exciting. I do look forward to what these players have to give us. I haven't actually introduced the players yet, so give me a moment here. There is some action happening as Yellow will attempt to catch Blue off guard. And remember, Blue started seaplane, so he's going to be a little bit behind in the naval arena. He's going to have far less ships than the other players at this stage of the game. I think... Oh no, excuse me. Yellow is on the south team, so I'm not... It's kind of hard to see what the colors are on the scouts, at least the core scouts. But yellow coming to blue's defense. So let's go ahead and introduce the players before we get too far into this. There's already so much action happening, I can't keep track of it. Havoc, Harbinger in blue, going core. In yellow, we have Des Ex Machina. Or is it Dus? I don't know. Anyway, in red, we have Defrem, and finally, in Vivacious Violet, or yeah, we have Die Hat. No, this is pink. Oh my god, I'm screwing this up. Guys, I'm sorry, the colors are confusing the crap out of me. So in pink, we have... Is it Soldier? I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me. Huge battle in the middle. I haven't even introduced the North team. Obviously, these players have no consideration for me as a caster. It's pretty brutal. Can't you just give me a minute to introduce the players before you fill our screens with explosions and naval joy? But yeah, right now both sides pumping out tons of scouts, and that is what you expect at this stage of the game. The way the Escalation naval typically works, though it doesn't always operate in this fashion, but this sort of natural progression of things that one would expect. You start with scouts, that would be the skeeters and searchers. You will then go into frigates and corsairs. That is kind of the middle stage, and then typically you will go to the submarines and destroyer phase of the T1 combat. So there is kind of a natural progression that we do typically see in Escalation naval battles, and so we've already seen that quite a bit this game. Early on, everyone just building tons of scouts. Now it has evolved heavily into vanguards and Vikings. Already we're seeing one submarine on the field, or not really the field, but on the water, or under the water. Anyway, in brown we have Gaylord Fokker. What movie was that from? Anyway, answer in the comment. Where's Gaylord Fokker? Zoolander? I don't remember. I can't remember. Someone help me. Here in purple we have Die Hat. In, what is this, light blue, we have Reaper. And in green we have Smurf. So guys, I've introduced the players. Nobody can say I didn't. I definitely embarrassed myself, but despite my atrocious job, those are your teams, and this is going to be an interesting game indeed. I'm very excited. Already this submarine built at a perfect time. 12 kills on this little monster. We got Jaws, the submarine, here under the water, wreaking all kinds of naval havoc on unsuspecting opponents. The nice thing about an early sub, they are very expensive, but they can kind of take over the sea, and then, because they get veterancy, they just get stronger and stronger, so a sub with 25 kills becomes sort of its own raid boss. A one-ship army, if you will. It can get pretty disgusting, and this sub is already starting to get there as the southern team not building the correct answers here. This submarine is on a rampage. It's, good God. This is a moment, I think, for the, for our southern players to begin to panic. You do not want to let a submarine, 18 kills already. It's going insane on the veterancy. Each shot so deadly. Each shot will take out a scout. If it lands, that one missed, but yeah. As you can see, one well-timed submarine can make all the difference, and the southern team definitely has to. They are now building some destroyers. The destroyers are a decent counter to submarines, but there is a skill element of it. So if it's destroyer versus a T1 submarine, hold that thought, because it looks like light blue submarine has been discovered. It will have more veterancy though. It should win this fight, but red started firing first. It's very close. He needs to retreat if he wants to save this with all of its veterancy. But blue and yellow on the warpath trying to chase this little bad boy down. And he will die. So nice job by the southern team preventing that before it became a complete catastrophe for them. But what I was saying is that naval combat in Escalation is pretty interesting because in a straight up fight between destroyers and submarines, if they're both firing, if they're both in range of each other and they just kind of AFK, the destroyer will win pretty handily. It's like the destroyer will have something like half health left. But the sub outranges the Crusader, and the sub is underwater, so it's harder to see. So with micro, subs can beat Crusaders. With micromanagement, using their range, using their stealth, or their kind of underwater ability, or the fact that they are beneath the sea, using the limited sonar range of the destroyers, submarines can beat them. So it comes down to micro, it comes down to skill. Good players can use submarines to devastating effect. In that game that I casted with Harold and Stagma, you saw how strong those assault submarines were. I'd love to see some assault submarines in this game. But yeah, we have now evolved to the destroyer phase of combat, and so now we will see plasma shells being sent one another's naval armies, barrages of powerful cannons and long-range weaponry, resulting in beautiful explosions as they land. So yeah, once you get enough Crusaders, it does start to feel a little bit overpowered. Crusader balls have always been a thing, even in OTA. If you can get enough of these things, especially early on in the game or before it gets to the T2 phase, you can just kind of roll over your opponent or swim over them. I didn't see what they said in the chat. They said something about the seaplanes in the chat. Maybe. Yeah. Not really sure. But the seaplanes can reclaim, and they will be reclaiming. I want to check out the player basis, see if there's anything interesting happening. Light blue is on T2. And brown just going heavily into the air game with an advanced seaplane platform. You don't see that every day. Blue, who started with air, has now gone into complete naval production. Yellow still on T1. And pink also on T1. And red as well. So it seems like light blue has kind of beat everyone to the punch to the T2 phase and already upgrading his extractors to T2. So I like what light blue's doing here. If the northern team can hold the pass in this situation, it is possible for light blue to start pumping out some of those extremely strong T2 units, making a shark already. So a shark, maybe not the best here, but it can be good, depending on how he uses it. I'd like to see assault submarines or executioners, the cruisers. But even a shark in the right situation with good micro could be useful here. It just depends on what light blue wants to do with it. The northern team is having to hold off without him. They are essentially a player down in the naval combat. So guys, that's one thing that's interesting about these big team games, like a 4v4, 5v5 game. What happens is, at the start, typically everyone's building units. Everyone's spamming out a bunch of units. And that's necessary because if everyone is not producing units, one side will simply crush them and overwhelm them and just win the game in like 5 minutes. But after that early phase where everyone's spamming out units, it then goes to a point where some players continue building units, but some players begin teching up. Now, when you're on the defense in Escalation, you typically have an advantage. It's the defender's advantage. This is true in warfare. It always has been true. The defender always has a lot of kind of natural advantages. So, for example, in TA, one of the advantages is that as you push closer to the enemy base, you are closer to their production units, so they can reinforce much more quickly, and then you become further from your production facilities, which makes it harder for you to reinforce. Also, on defense, you typically have better vision. The corpses start piling up as you attack, so then you start getting stuck on the corpses. Maybe it's less of an issue. But the pathfinding in TA is also still not great, even with all the improvements. And so on defense, the units don't really have to move. You're having to move your army kind of piecemeal into theirs. So the point is, if one or two players starts teching to T2 and relying on their teammates to defend them, it's possible, right? Because the defender has the advantage. But this relies on some communication, and it relies on some players continuing to hold the middle while the others tech up. And if it's done incorrectly, and say one whole team is still producing units and the other whole team is teching up, the game will just end like that. And it does. These team games end like that all the time. That's probably the main reason team games end, is that one team is pumping out units and the other team is all teching up at the same time, and then they just get overwhelmed and killed. So in this game, we're kind of seeing that. It seems like the whole South team, they're pumping out units. In the North, Light Blue has teched up to T2, but the Southern team definitely has the bigger army here, and it's a question of, can the Northern team hold on long enough for their teammates to take advantage of their technological superiority. Now, as I was saying before, the Shark, maybe not the best option at T2, as the Southern team doesn't really have submarines. The Shark is the anti-submarine, it's the submarine killer. The Southern team doesn't have submarines, so the Shark is still okay. It's not bad, it's not terrible, but it would be a Leviathan could be much better here. And see, Blue has broken through here. There is now a bull in the china closet, a fly in the soup. And this is problematic for a few reasons. Number one, Blue broke past the enemy lines, and now he can start rampaging through the Northern team's eco. But more importantly, he's going to be getting scouting information. He now is going to see exactly what's going on. Knowing is half the battle. Yellow has broken through here as well. So guys, this is what I was telling you about. The Southern team kept producing units. They all, in a unified fashion, created an army together and pushed through. The Northern team teched up, and the remaining players weren't able to build enough of an army, it seems, to stop the South from breaking through. He does take out the advanced shipyard before it kills that executioner. Before it finishes the executioner. And so yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the main reason the big team games end. One side just is building units, the other side is playing SimCity, and SimCity is not really a great place to be when you are getting rolled over by a massive army of 4 players or more. So, but the game is not over, even though the Southern team definitely in an advantageous position as Red's destroyers, or... Oh, it's interesting, he has a Crusader. One of his teammates must have given him that. But anyway, as Red's army of Crusaders floats up the middle, and Light Blue... So, here's another point I need to make. Light Blue went into Hive. The Hive is the T2 aircraft carrier. I've mentioned in previous casts, the Hive produces free energy, so it's kind of like a mini fusion. You know, you build it and then it gives you like 300 free energy. But Light Blue built this at a completely inappropriate time. This thing is just going to die, I think, and really accomplish nothing. The advanced shipyard is dead. Reaper needed to build executioners, or whatever. In fact, it looks like Reaper just going to leave the game. Yeah, he's just going to self-destruct his commander, give his ships to his teammates. So now it becomes a 3v4. So Reaper, I think taking up to T2 was okay, but going straight for a hive was completely inappropriate. Like, you need to read the battlefield. You need to have a sense of what's happening in the game. It's okay to tech to T2, but if your team is unable to hold the middle, you can't just start building carriers, which have no combat value at all. You need to build combat units. So, you know, in this situation, Pink has built a carrier. That's fine. The Southern team is ahead. They have complete control of the sea. This is an okay moment for Pink to improve his economy and grow their lead. But the Northern team, well, at least what Reaper did there was completely inappropriate for that situation. We see an advanced aircraft here pumping out cyclones. It's not unusual at all, of course, to see the torpedo gunships in this situation. As I said, I like air much more in the naval battle in Escalation, just because scout spam is not as prevalent, and you really have to invest in anti-air counters. And as we can see, Blue here has brought some of his cyclones to the north, and the cyclones do have a small bit of sonar, so they will be able to see the underwater moho extractors and the energy storages. So well played by Blue, finding an opening, finding that opportunity to punish the Northern team even more for their greediness. And a good micro as well by these. So Brown is coming to the rescue. He is building Hawks. So they are not completely hapless in the aerial battles, but still feels a little bit stilted for the Northern team, as they are now down an entire whole-ass player. There's red text to T2 Naval. Yellow already there, pumping out Executioners. Executioners are pretty standard at the early T2 phase. Now, what's fascinating about T2 Naval in Escalation, and kind of in TA in general, typically most structures, whether it's T1, T2, or T3, have some kind of early rating unit. So think of like the Jeffy in the vehicle, the Jeffy and the Weasel, the Pee-wee and the AK, and then when you get to T2, like the Pyros, the Panthers, things of that nature. But on T2 Naval, there really is no rating unit. There's no kind of light unit you build, you spam early on. And it's interesting because that does exist in T3. Like the T3 Naval has like these fast rating flamethrower ships and things like that. But early on in T2 Naval, all your options are pretty expensive. I guess the Archer is decent, but it's really, you don't want to... Spamming out Archers early on doesn't feel great unless there's a ton of error that you're trying to deal with. Executioners are expensive, so T2 Naval is a big investment because it's not... You can't quickly transition off of it into a huge raiding force or just kind of a cheap army like you can with some other techs. And that's one of the reasons that rushing T2 Naval can be such a dangerous play, because it doesn't pay off for a while. It takes a while for it to really gain a cost effectiveness, especially on the battlefield. And especially if you're building carriers which have no combat use at all. They do provide radar, and they do, I believe, have... Let's double check that. Yeah, they do have anti-nuke capability. So they provide energy, they provide radar, obviously they provide air repair pad, but they don't really have much use in combat other than that. And Brown now going to T3 seaplanes. Boy, we don't see that very... I don't know if I've ever casted T3 seaplanes in my life. In fact, I don't know if I've ever even played with T3 seaplanes. in my life. I don't know if I've ever seen it at all. I'm not even sure what the T3 seaplane platform consists of or what it can build. So wouldn't that be a treat if we could experience that joy together? If we could experience T3 naval platforms. But I will say, Purple doing a good job here, building kind of army they need to defend. There's tons of metal in the middle, so both teams really do need to kind of take advantage of this, bring some seaplanes and recover all this free resources. It does look like red and yellow doing it with their construction boats. But yeah, T3 seaplane platform, it's going to take a while. Probably won't see it anytime soon. But we will get there, my friends. We will get there. And in the meantime, I think both teams kind of at an eco phase, slowly taking up their economy. The southern team seems like they're all ecoing together, but they do have somewhat of a force. Decent amount of executioners there. Purple kind of single-handedly defending his team. Green has a few destroyers, but Purple's the only player I see. Of course, Purple did inherit Reaper's economy, so Purple is on 2 players eco, which will ideally give him the ability to produce huge fleets of ships. Brown now moving in with some Lancets. So, again, I'm sorry about the replayer, guys. It seems a little bit of lagginess or something. But I may speed up the game here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Blue has built some actual aircraft plants on the land. There are battleships in production. Purple now building some aircraft carriers of his own. So I don't think I'm missing anything too important, hopefully. One thing I was going to mention earlier that could be interesting on this map would actually be building things on these land masses in the middle, like even some guardians or toasters, or a bastion or anything like that. I doubt we'll see that in this game. But again, right now, green and purple, the only players really building on the northern team. Of course, I guess there's only 3, because we know that brown is going to seaplanes. He's over halfway there now. And the southern team, hard to say what they're doing. Blue is kind of building aircraft, but the issue for blue is that without an advanced constructor, an advanced naval construction ship, he can't upgrade his metal. He needs to ask his teammates for a construction submarine just so he can upgrade his economy, because with this T2 aircraft, they will not have the ability to build the underwater moho mines. But blue's sending up some Lancets. There's not a ton of anti-air in this army. I see not a single archer anywhere. So the archer, the T2 anti-air, or the T2 escort ship for arm. I can't remember what the core one is called, but we'll probably see it this game. But yeah, blue with some nice micro. Just sending out waves of torpedoes, and the northern team not really defending well against it. Brown did have some Hawks. I don't know if he still has them. We know that Brown is moving to T3 at this moment, so probably does not have the resources to spare to pump out anti-air. But Brown with some Lancets of his own, some Cyclones. And so we do see a lot of air support from both teams, but not much anti-air support from either team. Brown with nice micro, I like it. Love to see it. And the southern team breaking in. It's not surprising, the southern team has 4 players. Here are some archers. They're a little too far back. Pink needs to send these up here and try to get Brown's torpedo bombers if he can. Here are the Hawks. Let's move them easterly. See if he can catch the Lancets. Yellow breaking through and now finding Green's production. Brown doing everything he can to protect his teammate. Where in the world are those archers, my friend? Send them north. There we go. Now they're in range. Now they can clear out the sky properly and protect his teammates. Blue with a couple cyclones, getting what damage he can done. Green building the T1 anti-air sub or anti-air ship. Ultra seaplane platform still a mile away from being finished, and the northern team has got to hold on until he can get that. And that may change the course of the game. But red insisting that they're going to lose this. I don't see that. I don't see that the southern team is in a disadvantageous position. It is 3v4. And so, guys, one thing that's interesting about TA and any of the TA spinoffs like Supreme Commander or BAR, you may think that whichever team has more players is ahead or better off. So, like, if one team has 2 players and the other team has 4, then the player with 4 players is better off. But that is not always the case. It's not that simple, because the advantage of having more players is that obviously you have more commanders, and that's a powerful resource. But also you have more people to micromanage everything, right? Like you have more autonomy and authority over your armies. Having one player try to control, like, say, one whole side of this map would be very difficult. It would be nearly impossible against 4 players. But it's not always the case that having more players is better, because in a situation where one player dies, if a good player inherits his economy, like Diehat here, who's known as a strong late-game macro player, he is then actually going to use Reaper's economy better than Reaper would have, probably, right? So Diehat essentially has the economy of 2 players. He has 2 players worth of build power and production and eco. And so that's what the southern team is saying here. Letting purple just take over the game with this massive economy that he's inherited is going to start to be very scary, because they're having to split their eco 4 ways, the northern team only having to split it 3 ways, and the best player for them, probably the best player for the northern team, has the eco. He has the advantage. So the southern team probably does need to push their advantage. Yellow needs to move his warlords into combat. These could, even his teammates telling him to participate, he should just give these to Pink. Pink is actually paying a lot of attention. Soldier here, let's give a shout out to him. Keeping on the ball. It is sometimes difficult to micro your army around when you're also attempting to, I mean, look at all Pink's eco. Look at everything he's doing at his own base. It can be difficult to manage all of this, but Pink definitely doing it well, and Yellow failing. I'm sorry to say this. Deus Ex Machina kind of embarrassing himself. If they had those 2 warlords here, they could probably just move into the base here, into brown and purple's base, and kill them. But this is a lot of submarines, and there's not a ton of anti-sub support. The archers can shoot depth charges, but they need to be in range. They don't have a huge range for the depth charges, but if they do get into range of these depth charges, they will be quite effective against submarines. And of course the torpedo seaplanes no slouch either. But this Warlord getting caught a little bit out in the middle of nowhere. A Lamprey and a few subs will prey on that monster. And now we are in a situation where Brown has finally made it to T3 air, building a tornado. Shooting out, looks like it's shooting out torpedoes. I've never actually seen this unit in my life. Must be a T3 torpedo gunship. But it doesn't matter because right as soon as we get to T3, Soldier breaks into Brown's base. That can't feel good for Brown. Brown probably cursing his luck. Finally making it to T3 and then losing the T3 structure almost immediately. Looks like he only got a single torpedo gunship out of it. I don't even know if he got a T3 air constructor, which would be truly tragic. But Die Hat doing what he can here. He does have a Millennium. He's got a few Conquerors. This Warlord was damaged earlier from the submarines. So the northern team holding on. It was a devastating loss here. That is a blow. But there are still some advantages to the northern team's position. Once this battle ends, if they can hold on, they will have metal corpses for days. They will be able to power the metal economy for a long time to come if they can survive. It does look like with Green's assistance, they may be able to push this off. This Millennium being microed well by Die Hat. The Executioner's now in range of the Warlord, and of course the Warlord has no anti-sub defense. The Snake will be able to attack with impunity, but unfortunately most of Brown's base is gone, and Brown will just leave the game completely, which should allow Die Hat to have not one, not two, but 3 players' economies under his control. If he can take over this base and reclaim all this metal, Die Hat could still win this game. We've seen it before. We've seen 1v4s. We've seen players come back from astounding odds. And this Hello's Warlord kind of in the middle of nowhere with no support. Guys, battleships are strong in Escalation, but they need support. Like they have no anti-sub or anti-air capability. So you have to support your battleships. They need to be surrounded by archers and cruisers and whatever else. But Blue has taken this opportunity to send his Cyclones to the north and continue to put the pressure on Die Hat. And in this 2v4 situation, there's not much anti-air here. Just a couple of defenders. Die Hat definitely needs to build some archers now. He needs to make sure that he is covered. But Die Hat is in a very difficult situation. There's a lot of things that he needs to do. He needs to both expand left. He needs to reclaim all this metal. He needs to build anti-air for his base to protect against Blue's raids. But he also has to build a naval army to protect against the constant stream of warlords and executioners. So Die Hat is he's kind of having to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders here. He's got a lot of different tasks, juggling them all at once simultaneously. I will say though, Smurf has been a good teammate this whole game. He's been producing units the whole time. He's been making good choices with his units. Tons of submarines here. And as we mentioned earlier, the Warlords have no anti-sub defense. However, the Stalkers, these are going to absolutely eviscerate the poor T1 submarines. So yeah, nice choice by Soldier. He's also been making a ton of great choices this game in terms of his compositions and his timings as well. But one stalker will go down, but these stalkers just absolutely menacing these poor snakes. Let's see how many kills they have. 1 kill on that one, but 6 on that one, and another one moving into the fray. So, yeah, I hoped we would see stalkers this game, and we have seen stalkers. These things are absolute titans. God-like naval units, and we don't see enough of these assault submarines. They're just hard to deal with, guys. I mean, that's the reality of it. The only thing that beats a stalker on T2 in a 1v1 fight would be the hunter killers, the anti-sub, the snake, and the piranha. And already you can see that Die-Hat is building some of those piranhas because can't let these assault submarines, these stalkers, get into a fight without those. These are the only thing that are going to beat the stalkers for their cost. Of course, the stalkers are expensive. And I guess you can also counter them with air. You know, you can bring torpedo bombers and whatnot. So they're not unbeatable, but without the right counters, these will easily take over the sea. And once again, I'm surprised we don't see them more because it is feels like such a niche unit, but in the right situation, it can take over the sea no problem. I guess one of the other disadvantages to building them is that they can't shoot on land. So on a hybrid map, you know, you might prefer a warlord, which can then shell the coastline, shell your opponent's base. You know, the Leviathan and the Stalker limited to what is in the water, but they do that very well. As it seems like Purple has recovered here. And guys, I want to say one thing about Purple. What Purple's doing is amazing. He's managing 3 bases all at once, 3 bases worth of territory, and he's reclaimed almost all the metal, all the corpses that were there, and he's using all that metal somehow. I don't know how he's doing this because, guys, I can tell you, trying to manage 3 players worth of bases and reclaim a massive sea battle's worth of corpses and use all your metal is impressively difficult. It's just like that much metal is almost impossible to spend without being on T3. And even being on T3 can be like the amount of metal that dropped there. I mean, look, this one battleship is worth 3,500. There were tons of these. I mean, we're talking probably like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 metal that was in the water there that he reclaimed. And he spent it. I mean, he's not floating it. So really, Die-Hat showing us the power of his macro skill. Very impressive. And not only is he just building any unit, he's building the right units. He's building piranhas to counter the stalkers. He's building scouts to give him vision. He's building, well, he already had the Millennium, but he's got the Millennium for fire support. Green doing a good job as well. Both Green and Purple now going to T3 Naval. We asked for it. We hoped for it. We prayed for it. The TA gods seem to have heard our prayers. But if Blue has anything to say about it, he's not going to let it get to the T3 phase. I did mention Die-Hat does need to build anti-air, and he has failed to do this. There is not enough anti-air here to I think really deal with this effectively. Blue already takes out Moho Metal Maker. And marking the T3 shipyard, so I guess I was wrong about that. There was enough anti-air. I thought there was more torpedo gunships, but really there's only about maybe 8 to 10 defenders here. That was a very weak attack by Blue. I thought he would have more than that, but Maybe if Daihat kept like a single archer just around that area, it could help against future raids. Nice job either way. As the southern team in a 2v4 situation, still looking... did I say the northern team in a 2v4 situation, still looking very good. As Green almost finished with his T3 shipyard. He's got plenty to defend here. And with Daihat's piranhas, they may be able to hold. Green has built his shipyard. Yeah, so Daihat has even said, dangerous spot, I agree. Green should have built his T3 shipyard further back. This is way too far forward. It's way too dangerous of a spot, but may be able to protect it. The northern team has to hold on. They have to do their best. And they are doing okay, but Soldier now pushing through in earnest with his army, his fleet. But nice micro by Daihat, keeping that Millennium. Oh no! Oh my god. What a beautiful snipe there by Blue. He finds it and he snipes that T3 shipyard before it can get a single ship out. And with that, the game is much closer than it could have been. Green not really learning his lesson. Build it back here, my friend. Build it further north. But yeah, Daihat calling that from a mile away. But again, this battleship has been used so effectively. 7 kills on it. It's kept it at a very good range. The armed battleship in particular, which does not have the laser, you really want to keep it at max distance to get full use out of it. You can see the range is like further than the screen. Even on 1440p, which I am currently casting. But now, wow, this is a max range battleship fight. You love to see it. That is a beautiful array of carnage. Yellow will lose his Leviathan to the Marais. But my god, once again the northern team barely holding on, losing that shipyard at the worst possible moment. Soldier showing us why he is such a strong player. Taking that aggressive posture, keeping his foot on the gas, not letting the northern team breathe, realizing that they need to push their advantage while they still have the advantage. I was going to say, if I had to guess, Daihat is already on T3, and he is already on T3. But can he hold? Can the northern team hold for long enough? Wotan did some shit changes. Yeah, so they're talking about a change that Wotan did where he separated T3 into naval and shipyard. So you cannot build submarines from the T3 naval factory and vice versa. You can't build ships from the T3 submarine pen. I don't know when that change was made. Might have been this patch. This is a 996 game. But in either case, yeah, not having access to T3 subs is a bit difficult in this situation. But it's not as though T3 ships are any slouch. Now, disagreement I think I have with Daihat here. He's going straight for the most expensive T3 ship in the game. You know, this could be a good moment to build arc lights, or torrents, or even riptides. But to go straight for the victory is a bit ambitious. Let's just say that it's a little ambitious if you're in a situation where you're in good control of the sea, then maybe. But the southern team is clinging to dear life. I don't agree with going for a victory first. Now, I will say this. If the victory finishes, that's going to be a game-ending proposition. But if it finishes, and we don't... It doesn't look like it is going to finish. This is going to take forever. Guys, do not go straight into the most expensive unit your factory can build right after you build it. Seems self-explanatory, but the northern team barely holding on as most of Green's production structures have been killed. He's lost his second T3 factory that he was once again building too close, and it just feels like if Green had built his T3 factory back here, the game could look so different. His T3 naval yard, we could be in such a different game because he would now be pumping out T3 ships, and that could be the difference maker. Can be exactly what they need to win this game. But now, instead, Green losing all of his production. Even though most of his eco is intact, he has nothing left to build ships with. And Dai doing a valiant job of defending, now building stalkers. And the southern team doesn't have the best sub-defense, so these stalkers may hold things off. He's also walled off the western approach. Not completely, there's still, I think, a small area that ships may be able to get through. But Soldier still has his own stalkers, this one pretty low. And oh no. Now Daihat, even repairing his Millennium, this war hero that has just stood the test of time, now attempting to retreat, but I don't think it's not gonna matter. This thing will die. It would have been nice if he had retreated that sooner, but it looks like Blue has now sniped Green, and with that, I think the northern team's chances of staying in this game. Man, the northern team was so close to winning 2v4, so close to coming back, even after all the tragedies that occurred. If Green had just built his T3 naval yard back here, and if Daihat had just built anything other than the victory, I think the northern team could have done it. This was such a close game, and the northern team, against nearly impossible odds, just was holding on in an impossible scenario. What an amazing game by both sides. It does look like Pink is now on T3 himself, so we will get to see a little bit of arc lights before the game comes and inevitably draws to a close. But nice job by Daihat. But I think the MVP here has definitely got to be Soldier. Soldier was the player on the southern team, encouraging everyone to keep the pressure up, making great decisions with his unit choices and his attack routes. Blue with a great supporting role, nice use of torpedoes, and you know, Yellow helping as well. Everyone doing their part. I won't say that no one on the southern team was a slouch. Reaper, I can't say that about. But yeah, I think the MVP here we're going to give to Soldier. He's just done an outstanding job. But second place goes to Daihat. As Daihat made great choices the whole game. The only mistake, I think, building the victory right off. Other than that, great job. Green did a good job until he decided to build his T3 factory way up in the front. That was the, I think, decision that sealed his fate. So guys, what a great game. What an exciting naval battle. This is why I love T3 naval combat. What an awesome, awesome game. I hope you guys all enjoyed this. We didn't get to see the Inferno, and I would have loved to see that. It does feel like every time I cast the game, sometimes it's like every time we get to T3, the game just ends before it can really get to be used heavily or make much of a difference in the game. But one of these days we will get to see a true T3 naval battle, and that will be the epic moment we've all been waiting for. But guys, everyone, thank you for watching the cast. And subscribe to the channel, like it, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next cast.